My name is David Hale. I am the state representative from District 74.
My name is Dr. Jack Call. I'm a practicing dentist in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm also executive chair of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology.
Hello, my name is Cindy Batson. I am a registered nurse, a mother of 3, and I appreciate you hearing our bill today. Thank you.
There are, in some of my research, and I know Representative Hart's research as well, we have discovered that various water plants across the state of Kentucky are being forced to spend incredible amounts of money on this product. I actually, in some of my reviewing of some of the systems, found out that some of them were spending over $600,000 per year, actually, on this product that they were putting in the drinking water systems. Of course, not every system is that expensive. This specific, is a product that no matter where you're at on the side of this, there are many research studies that are probably pro and con. I mean, I can sit here today and I can give you some studies that we have, and I'm sure there's going to be some folks that are going to come to the table that are probably going to give you some research studies that they have that is going to attempt to refute what we are saying. But I just have a couple, and these are very reputable. One was the National Institute of Health, and another one it was a publication called the Medical News Today. They have listed in their journal and in publications that they put out the very harmful, or I will say this, the very possible harmful effects of fluoride on the body. An excellent facility called the Cleveland Clinic just recently came out with a study, and they said that excessive use of this product was very detrimental to the individuals that were taking this in. I think the most compelling testimony that I heard of anyone that gave testimony on this came from one of our current representatives, Representative William Lawrence, who works in this field. And Representative Lawrence sat at the table and he said that he had saw where there would be containers of this fluoride product where it had been placed on a metal grate or a metal pallet or even on a concrete structure, that it almost disintegrated that in just a matter of maybe 2 or 3 months. I mean, that grate or that metal structure where the fluoride had maybe sloshed out of there, they had spilled some of it, or some had dripped out of the container, of what it done to a piece of metal grate. And then when you get to thinking we're putting that into our bodies and what that is doing to our children and to ourselves and to whomever. And again, again, I want Dr. Call here today to just take a few minutes. And Dr. Call, please proceed with testimony, if that's all right, Madam Chair. And he's already agreed to be very brief.
Sure. And I'll be glad to answer questions. Okay, I'll be glad to answer questions as this proceeding continues, because there's so many angles to this story. And I'm here as a dentist. It's kind of unusual for a dentist to actually oppose water fluoridation. The problem is it's basically mass medication without informed consent. And the problem also is kind of a one-size-fits-all solution. There's a concept amongst toxicologists and regulators called the margin of safety. And when there's a concern about a particular chemical or substance and its possible harmful effects, and the experts and regulators are trying to decide on what level might be an acceptable exposure over time, there's assigned some kind of an uncertainty factor, most commonly used is 10. And in a lot of the recently published research funded by NIH over the last 8-10 years, and even the National Toxicology Program, who released their report after 8 years of production just last year, there is a sense that, if there's 1.5 parts per million of fluoride in the water, that is like a significant level that raises concern. Now, there's some studies showing even lesser amounts, like what we fluoridate with here throughout our country, of 0.7 parts per million. And some people would think, that's only half as much, nothing to worry about. Well, what they're missing are the principles of toxicology and epidemiology in which the uncertainty factor needs to be applied to that. So if that uncertainty factor of 10 is applied to this 1.5 parts per million that is of such concern, that drops your level down to 0.15 parts per million.
Do you have any knowledge, or does anyone here who's been speaking have any knowledge about other countries who, you've talked a little bit about Chile and your experience, other countries that don't fluoridate their water and, states maybe who have pulled their fluoride out of water? Are we seeing any untoward effects, or what are you seeing?
If I could more specifically answer your question, this is a graph from the World Health Organization showing from 1965 to almost currently, the reduction of tooth decay throughout the world. And if you can't see the colors, there's about half of them that are countries that are unfluoridated water and the other half fluoridated water. And you can just see the trend. It's very clear. Now, certainly there's all these anecdotal stories and observations made by various practitioners that go around the world and see all the horrible things. And we're the kind of the focus of attention when we show up with our skill set to fix the problems. But this is data.
All right, Representative Callaway, do you have a question?
I guess it is a question, probably more of a comment. We keep hearing, and the reason for my mentioning of Jermaine, our representative mentioned it. We're talking about lack of access in each of these testimonies, and that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about local municipalities having the authority to remove it. So you've addressed some of that, but and I hear testimony about we visit all these places that don't have fluorinated water, but they throw in and don't have access to fluoride. So we do have access to fluoride. I remember them bringing trays around when we were in school of fluoride in cups that we would swish, spit it back in the cup, and remove it. So saying that we don't have access to fluoride, it just doesn't. It's just not true. So lumping us in, and that doesn't make a case for me. And even if it did, we're not giving a blanket approval for our water companies to put whatever chemicals in that they want, just because we're saying that some chemicals are acceptable. Again, the untreated dental care, saying that maybe 90% of individuals would go back. If we're advocating for something we already have in place, and we're talking about the low dental rates, I just don't see that that's making a case for it. We've been treating, and yet we have low dental rates and low dental health rates in our state. So make that make sense for me. But the other thing, I have spoken with Louisville Water Company. We sat across the table and had a discussion about this. And I've pled my case that my constituents, they want clean water. That's what we hire. That's what we have Louisville Water there to do. We want clean water. And yes, it does take some chemicals to do that. This is not one of those chemicals. So to take that into their own hands to say that ultimately they're probably going to. If this passes, Louisville Water will still probably continue to fluorinate our water. So, but I'm called to be a voice of my people, and what I've heard back from this is we don't want to be ingesting something that could be just rinse topical. Okay, so if we have that discussion about that it is good for our teeth, if mothers should be ingesting it, let's let mothers ingest it, if that's the case. But blanketly putting it in all of our water, I just have not heard a case for it at all. I don't think what we've been discussing here, if we need to address untreated regions, if lack of access to dental care, let's do that. Why are these people? Nobody wants to see children having tooth pain. Nobody wants that. We have ways to combat that without requiring everyone to ingest, even if there's a chance that it's harmful. So to have these discussions at a local level, I think is important, and I appreciate hearing the bill. Thank you for hearing the bill.
Part of this process of if the bill passes and there's defluoridation, there are going to be unintended consequences on Medicaid. How are we going to cover that? Like, what are we going to do to ensure that there is good oral health throughout the state of Kentucky and available to all Kentuckians?
Well, I would have to answer that. Of course, I listened to the comments that were made as far as how this would affect what the cost of to Medicaid would be. Of course, that study came from the cabinet that gave those that information, which was requested. But I just want to direct and I'm not arguing about that number, but I just want to give you a couple other things that came from that same cabinet information that was delivered. And I had a copy of that, and I just want to read you. I mean, even though they made this statement that it was going to cost this much money and could affect that much X amount of dollars in Medicaid, but you have to take into account of also in that same study, the same group the same cabinet folks that sent that study also made statements, and I will, if you'll allow me, I will just read that statement. It says, if fluoridation is removed from water in a certain area, this could lead, it does say it could lead, they believe that it could lead to dental decay, but it also says it results in more opioid painkillers, antibiotics. Therefore, removing this causes, intensifies opioid and heroin crisis and the rise of antibiotic resistance bacteria. So I look at those statements, which I think are almost, how could they say that is a direct result of someone not getting fluoride in their water? I think those are absurd statements, and so I take that statement, and I'm not doubting the amount of the money, but what I'm saying is I look at that complete study that came from the cabinet and some of those statements right there, so I take that for basically what it's worth to me.
I appreciate that, and just in reference to the statement that you read, and I think we kind of touched on it, when there is dental decay, there is increased pain and then a need for pain relief. So that was how I read that understood that statement. So thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it brief. I'm aware of the time. I just have one question, if I can ask Cindy, please. Thank you, Cindy. I've heard your testimony before, and I really appreciate that. There's some things that you did in your last testimony that I've forgotten. If you could just refresh my memory on, can you share with us what exactly is added to water to increase the level of fluoride in the public water?
Yes, I can. what's used is a product called hydrofluorosilicic acid. In 2018, when this bill was filed, one of the reasons that I was prompted to call my state representative was because I brought my own government, my local government, in and wanted to share this with them after I learned it. So, water systems bid out to the lowest dollar the chemical that contains fluoride to artificially elevate the level in their drinking water. And ours came from a company in Florida, and it was a phosphate fertilizer manufacturer. It is a chemical that is a byproduct of manufacturing phosphate. When they pull the rocks from the Earth's crust and they pulverize them, it creates a vapor that's captured in a smokestack because the EPA regulates it to be too toxic to be emitted into the environment. On top of the smokestack, because it can't be emitted, there is a wet scrubbing mechanism. So water drips down into it, which creates a liquid. And that liquid is trucked over to what's known as a cooling pool. What is solid sediments to the bottom, what is radioactive, again, all from the Earth's crust, evaporates off. And the slurry that's left is what's trucked to our water department. If it wasn't being sold to our water department, it would have to be disposed of and neutralized and disposed of by a hazardous waste company. So on our chemical, there's a stamp on it that says 25% hydrofluorosilicic acid or 23% hydrofluorosilicic acid. And in 2014, an independent biologist tested that product and found, as expected, that it did have other elements from the Earth's crust, heavy metals, arsenic, manganese, aluminum. So we've heard these testimonies about access to fluoride, but it's not a pharmaceutical grade product. It is someone else's pollutant, essentially.
We're going to go ahead. DJ, please take the roll.
Representative Bratcher? Yes. Representative Bray?
Yes, briefly explain my vote. Thank you all. I spent a lot of time in a water plant long time ago. Just want to make it very clear, fluoride is not used in the water treatment process to produce clean water. It is absolutely an additive. It is at the water treatment plant level, it is a very caustic additive, causes a lot of corrosion. But one thing that I am happy to hear today is we're very concerned about Medicaid spending from both sides of the aisle, and we're concerned about babies in utero. Thank you, ma'am.
Representative Burke?
I'd like to explain my no vote. We come back year after year to fix unintended consequences. There are famous examples of places that have defluoridated their water and had to come back because, oh my gosh, unintended consequences. So all of a sudden, just like Representative Bray, I'm shocked to hear that today we care about local control, because all I've heard all session is how local municipalities don't know what's best and we need to control it from Frankfurt. This is a public health issue. That is not something for local government to determine. The reason that it's appropriate for this to be a state government decision is because it requires good science. And when we leave that to local governments, we put them in a very awkward position. If they defluoridate their water and take those things away from their water systems, and then 10 years later realize that their families and children and adults are all suffering from dental decay, it's going to be very expensive for them to fix that. We know that to be true because you can look at Calgary, Canada, and the fact that it cost $25 million to refluoridate their system. We don't have $25 million to waste on anything. Our budget is very slim. Our people deserve better. I'm a no.
Representative Callaway?
I'm an aye, and I want to reiterate what Representative Bray said. I just want to second that. Happy to hear that.
Representative Camuel?
Yes, I'd like to explain my vote. I'm a no today on this bill. It's much more cost effective, I think, for individuals who want to eliminate fluoride from their from usage by going out and purchasing inexpensive water filtration pitchers. You can also find countertop options as well as whole house installations that will cost a lot less, anywhere from $60 for highly rated ones to $700 installed. $800 installed. So my recommendation is that we don't make a decision based on the whim of a small number of people that will impact millions of Kentuckians. So I'm a no. Thank you.
Representative Dotson.
Yes, I'd like to explain my vote real quickly. We don't know the totality of all the side effects that come from fluoride. It's been given over the last 35, 40 years, and as Representative Callaway, we used to take it in school as well. We don't know the side effects of any of these things as far as cancers, Alzheimer's, dementia, these things. So there's not, maybe we need to do more testing, but I think for now people should have the option to opt out of taking fluoride if they need to. Thank you.
Representative Duval. Representative Fleming.
Explain my vote. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to quantify my yes vote to say this is that I'll reach out to Representative Hart. I do appreciate Representative Hale going through and explain this, but I think I like this guy. Reach out to him to look at putting in language as an amendment on the governing body of the district. And also I concur with the chair in terms of looking at Medicaid costs, and we need to be concerned about that as well. But I am a yes, if you don't mind.
Representative Gordon.
Yes.
Representative Holloway.
Yes.
Representative Marzian.
Explain my vote briefly, Madam Chair. I'm a no. But the fact is that fluoride stops cavities. Cavities have to be treated, and there is an alarming shortage of dentists in rural Kentucky. We know that. And years ago, Paul Mason from Letcher County said when kids have teeth that hurt, they can't go to school. And his county could not afford dentists, or Medicaid did not pay for dentists. So we're going to lose out on education. We're going to lose these kids to opioids. And this is a terrible bill for our Medicaid department, for our kids, for our rural areas. And a few years ago, Kentucky had the honor, I guess, of being the state with the most amount of folks with missing teeth. So I guess we could keep that honor, but I vote no.
Representative Neighbors.
Yes.
Representative Proctor.
Yes.
Representative Rayburn.
Yes.
Representative Raymer.
Yes, and I just want to thank Representative Hart that couldn't be here today for his hard work on this bill.
Representative Riley. Representative Sharp. Representative Wilner. Chair Mosier.
I'm going to explain my vote. I am still not comfortable with the potential for just adding to our poor oral health, which leads to other medical conditions in our state. I will have to see some additional language also that is going to offset our potential Medicaid costs. And also the local control. I just don't know how this is going to be operationalized. I hate putting the burden of voting on this issue on our water district, our unelected officials in our regions. So today I'm going to be a no, but I'm going to look at additional language and I might change my mind. So thank you. Okay. House Bill 16 passes with 11 yes votes, 4 no votes, and no passes.